And we are live, and we are joined by Martin Worth, who is coming to this call. That sounded weird, from Australia. And so, welcome, Martin. How's it going?
Thanks, Justin. Going really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in Brisbane in Australia, which is on the east coast, halfway up. For those people that might not know where Brisbane is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I should get down there. My client Tammy says I have an Aussie vibe, and I seem to really
oh,
resonate with you guys down there.
very
So
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
that's nice.
So I'm really excited to get to know you more and learning about the work you're doing. And I thought we could jump in just off of something you said a moment ago, which is you were leading an intuitive session with a group of people just prior to this. And so that caught my attention, and I'd love to ask you what is an intuitive session?
Good question. Basically, a lot of the work that I do, I I don't necessarily. I guess with the healing work that I do, because I'm a healing practitioner on one level. With the healing work that I do, I heal intuitively. So I might have a chat with a client before they arrive and see what's happening, and we'll set an intent. But when we actually start to work together, whether it's in person or by distance, it's done intuitively, as in what comes through comes through. So I've done a lot of work on intuition. Some people might want to call it channeling. You can call it whatever you like, really. And connecting beyond the veil. And I find that it's way more successful to just let the information come through that's coming through than to try to preempt it under certain circumstances. Although I must admit, when I run a masterclass, I normally have a script. I normally know where it's going to go. I've just run a series of masterclasses that I called the Mechanics of Creation, which
Oh,
went
nice.
through three modules, three masterclasses, where the first one was about how our mind works, how we actually create our reality. The second one was about how to up-level our vibration, our energy, to a point where we can match the frequency of what we want to attract into our lives. And then the third one was basically around what's become to know now as quantum jumping into a parallel time track of yourself. So this morning's session, however, thanks for the bit of a lead up there, but this morning's session, however, I had absolutely no plan. Because the masterclass series that Spirit had given me to deliver was done, but the same people really wanted more, and I do have a group of people, and it's just good to keep in touch. The best way to keep up your vibe is to keep in touch with like-minded people. And so this morning was kind of like, I got up just after 5 and sat and thought, okay, what am I gonna do today? What am I gonna talk about? And a bit of information came through, got on the call, and I just started with the meditation and went from there. So as an intuitive Zoom masterclass, it was definitely an intuitive rambling. I said, this is not a masterclass, this is a ramble class this morning. But we covered topics from 3 levels of meditation through to what is higher self and how does higher self help us to connect intuitively, to how does this match up with creating the life you love. We even explored a little bit of what we might call the truth behind religion. So it was a wide-ranging, roaming Ramble
Sounds
class.
sounds good. Sounds really good. So it sounds like your work, you in the being you called yourself a healer, I think, and you referred to intuitive healing, and a lot of what you're describing to me sounds like the words I would use are more like raising consciousness. And
Totally.
perhaps if we're going through this process of expansion in mind and spirit, that could be called healing, perhaps to, uh, ascending to our divine nature or something like that. But generally, when I hear the word healing, and I think most people when they hear the word healing, that sort of when we've gotten so out of balance, or there's an acute crisis going on in the body, or the emotionally. And so, would you say that your work sometimes addresses stuff in that realm, and then like this sort of arbitrary distinction I'm making between healing and raising consciousness? Do you see it like that,
Yeah.
or what are
No,
your thoughts on?
I concur 100%. I would have to say that first I would have to say all healing is self-healing.
Mm-hmm.
No matter, the practitioner is really a catalyst. That's why I would refer to myself as a healing practitioner, not a healer. There's a
Mm-hmm.
distinct difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone once said you can't call yourself a healer. That's what other people would call you. It keeps the ego out of the way.
Yeah.
But I guess the thing is, not too many years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, people would come with an issue and expect that the healer was going to heal them.
Mm-hmm.
These days, there are still a bunch of people that feel like that, but these days the energy is more around. I can't remember the exact term that you used. Was it raising consciousness? Was that the term you
Yes.
used?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's more around raising consciousness. My work has changed from someone coming to my studio, my healing studio, getting on a massage table, connecting with spirit, changing the past in the present for the future, and then walking out all tuned up like they've just been to the mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed from that. There is still that, because people do have acute issues, and you can't, as I say, you can't drain the swamp while the crocodiles are snapping around your ankles, kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times where people come and they have an issue that they need to clear, or it needs to be, I suppose, dissipated enough to the point where they can see clearly what their next step on their path is to continue the healing with themselves. So it's more of
Mm-hmm.
empowering people to raise their consciousness. There are
Mm-hmm.
times when people are so tied in knots over a particular issue that they sometimes just need more counseling, so to speak. To some people just need someone to talk to. I had a guy ring me up. He's actually a friend of mine who was going through a hard time. And now when someone books a session with me, I normally feel I have to do something for them. Okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
This guy said, "Oh, can I book a formal session with you?" I said, "Sure." So I gave him a link that he didn't have to pay because he's a friend of mine, and he booked a session. And he just started talking, and I was actually lying on the couch, and I had my phone up on the back of the couch, and he just talked and talked, and I went, uh-huh. And after about 45 minutes, he said, "Oh, thanks. You were awesome," he says.
Yeah.
"I feel so much better. Thank you. Thank you. Can I send you some money?" And I said, "No, mate, I don't want your money. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's all cool. I'm glad I was helpful." And I went back to having a nap.
Well, I believe him. You probably were
Yeah,
awesome.
totally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And because when you're healing people and raising consciousness all the time, just I'm
Yeah,
sure just hanging out with you for 45 minutes.
Thank you.
There's a bit of a glow thing going on there.
A bit of a
How
vibe
do
going on.
you what's your approach to like being that? Like, because I don't think I could do that, you know, like I know that we kind of have our chosen fields that we specialize in, but what was your process of kind of becoming that?
The process for me was firstly clearing my own stuff, really. Starting on how I got into a healing field was, and I do feel to say that, you know, I probably don't do as much healing, inverted commas, now as I used to. I do more mentoring, helping people to move from clearing their immediate issues, so they're, you know, crocodiles out of the swamp, to connecting with their essential nature, and then to create the life they love. That's the sort of progression that I follow. But how I got into it was, yeah, I had some immediate issues that needed to be cleared. I was in a constant cycle, which I won't go into, just a constant cycle of the same thing happening over and over and over and over and over again. So I finally got to the point where I said, I've got to do something about this. This is ridiculous. I didn't know what to do about it, despite the fact that most of my life I have, you know, followed spiritual practices to one degree or another, you know, between lapses of capitalism and doing all sorts of different other things as life goes on. I didn't know what to do. I did hear about someone who was a healer, and I went along, had one session of this particular modality, and my life just changed. And the key there was definitely in the practitioner's skill to be able, well, yes, it was in the practitioner's skill, but the particular modality is more about connecting a person to their essential nature, acknowledging spirit. And once we acknowledge our spirit, something switches on. It's like, you know, the Christians that say you've been born again, you know, but, you know, and I don't want to either knock or validate that, but it's the same thing. It's the same
I get
thing.
it.
Once you switch on to the world beyond the veil, to spirit, your actual essential nature, things just do start to change. When you switch on to that through a session where part of this modality is healing the past in the present for the future. When you go and you heal the past, what's happened? Because most of our trauma is collected negative experiences. When you heal those, or resolve is a nice word to use, when you resolve the energetic charge of those experiences, and when you also perhaps reprint a different outcome that you would have preferred in a past experience, then you become free of it.
Yes.
And so that happened for me. And my best friend, about 4 weeks after I'd had this healing session, says, "What happened? You're just completely different. You're," and this was in a positive way, you know.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't cool before, but I was the kind of guy that if I wasn't in a relationship or didn't have a bunch of friends, I was unhappy. I would have to be doing something. I could not sit on my own, because I don't know why, but I could not just, you know. But I went from being a person who was kind of, you know, I suppose the social butterfly might be a term to use, I don't know, to being quite content sitting at home, listening to some vinyl on the analog record player and having a couple of beers and just enjoying my own company. And this mate of mine says, "That's not what you do. What happened?" So it was that, and then the unfolding of life starting to become more um, connected was the next part of that process. And then I definitely had reconnected with my spiritual side and started to practice a bit more meditation and a bit more whatever, um, starting to create and manifest things in my life that I wanted, rather than just putting up with what come up next. And I thought, well, this has been so good for me. I think I'll go and do a couple of courses and and see how it works. And then I just immediately um, immediately just stepped into it. I finished
Mm-hmm.
a course which was, it was 7 days. And straight
Mm-hmm.
after that, I felt so confident with it. I just started practicing it, and my local acupuncturist said, "Oh, well, you can practice on me." So anyway, and did one session on her for tension headaches. Tension headaches finished. Did another session on her for about a week or two later for always having itchy arms. Believe it or not,
That's what I'm
itchy
having
arms.
literally right now.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
not to take over your story, but I'm literally covered in that right now.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Well, itchy
Yeah.
arms went away on the second session, and the third session, because her underlying issue was diabetes, and she was about to be
Mm-hmm.
put on insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Third session, blood sugar went back to normal, and she didn't need to go on insulin. So this is quite powerful. And so
Yeah.
having such a successful start just kind of propelled me into it. So I would have to say that
Yeah.
spirit
Yeah.
was definitely pushing me down this path. Yeah.
I hear you. Two experiences I've had in my life that were so impactful are coming to mind that I want to share because they really support what I hear you saying in terms of the realness of these kinds of experiences. And
Mm.
one of them was when I worked with a healer in the desert in California, and
Mm.
he did this thing where he tapped my sternum and clapped over my head while we were speaking, and it caused some sort of very deep, I've always thought of it as like an emotional shift, but you talked about turning on, what was it, the Holy Spirit, or waking up to the Holy Spirit, or something like that. And
Well, switching on to your spirit, yeah, to be
okay,
exact.
yeah. Okay, right. Nothing but the Holy Spirit or whatever.
Yeah.
Or do they call it the Holy Ghost? I don't even know. It doesn't matter. And then
Yeah.
massive changes happened in my life instantly. And
Mm.
that's where I booked a one-way ticket to Latin America from Montreal, and I sold all my stuff.
Excellent.
And
Mm.
it is like when that real change happens deep down inside of us, it's like the changes happen instantly in our life. And then the other story that came from my life that I'm remembering was I met this very high level Tantra practitioner one time. And I asked him, "How did you get into Tantra?" And he said, "Well, I was working with a Native American shaman, and we were looking at this experience I had as a child where my cousin drowned in a lake, and I
Mm.
witnessed my relatives carrying the body, and everybody was completely emotionless. And I think he was exploring this idea that had caused emotional constriction or blockage in his system, sort of reacting to that or modeling that. And so he's working with this Native American shaman, I think maybe in his 40s or something, and he'd been, I don't know, 13 or something, maybe, when his cousin died. And the shaman in that moment said that to him, he goes, "You were uh, a mystic in ancient Egypt, and you always wanted to learn Tantra." And in that
Mm.
moment, suddenly he knew Tantra, and
Mm.
he was a very successful Tantra practitioner who was very active in the community among some of the most high profile authors on the subject, and he was making a lot of money and stuff like that. And great guy. So I believe in these spontaneous, momentary, deep shifts, and I believe in this somehow almost like the in the Matrix, Neo gets his kung fu chip. I
Yeah,
think
sure.
there is something to that, where because
It,
sometimes people are
yeah,
really good at things, and
yeah,
it comes
it happens.
effortlessly sort of to them. They work hard
The,
at it at the same time, but
the theory behind it is that there really is only the now moment. And this now moment, there are multiple now moments that exist contemporaneously, because time is just an illusion. So everything that's happened in the past and everything that's going to happen in the future is actually present on a different frequency to what we are perceiving right now. I mean, at this point in time, if we were to stop talking and empty our minds and just sit here, which we won't do because it wouldn't be a podcast then, there is just the now moment. And the stuff that we remember is only present now because we've drawn it into the now moment. And the stuff that we are going to think about doing after this only exists because we brought it into the now moment. So the idea is generally that there is a whole multiverse, for want of a word. That's the word that probably has different meanings. But at this now moment, which has just shifted to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, a million times a second kind of thing. Everything exists at once right now. So there's a kung fu chip that exists right now as well. Now, it's generally speaking with this stuff, it's the mechanics of it are that somewhere along the line in a past or a future lifetime, so a parallel version of you, there is a parallel version of you that has the kung fu capability or has the tantra capability, or in my case, has already stepped into this healing modality, which just needed to be switched on for me through doing the course. In the case of Nemo, it's switched on by just jumping into that. And we can. There's a guy called Bill Goldman who first touted this maybe, I don't know, maybe 40 years ago, and called it quantum jumping. And he taught himself to play piano by jumping into a parallel version of himself that was a pianist. So I mean, this can be done. I've done it myself with several things. It's the kind of thing you don't want to play around with it too much. It's very, very powerful, and that's not saying it's dangerous, but I mean, really choose what it is that you want to manifest using this technique, because it will manifest. And
I want
so, like, be careful what you wish for, kind of thing.
well, I want to ask you about an experience I had maybe 6 weeks ago, which is there was this one day where I had a business meeting in the morning, and I made an offer to someone, and they said yes, I agree, but I'll send you the money a little bit later, and it was it would have made a big difference for me. Like that was a big deal for me financially. And then later that day, I went on a date with a girl, and I had a date that I thought, okay, I've met somebody truly special here. This is exciting. I think I've got a girlfriend here, and she was acting like that too, and like because I'm wanting something really great, really awesome. I could go out with a girl that's kind of okay. That I want something that's like wow, you know. And I thought I'd found that, and And then the guy I never ended up actually closing the business deal with me, and then the girl kind of disappeared. And it was like, I feel like I almost shifted to this other reality where I had a whole other level of abundance, and I had this really awesome girl, and then it just turned out like I just didn't quite make it or something like that.
Interesting. This I mean, I'm not getting a particular, well, maybe I am getting a particular intuitive reading on that. But when this happens, it can sometimes be the fact that there were two significant things, two things that you really do want to manifest in your life: financial freedom and a great life partner. Hey, when those two things were presented to you, I wonder what resistances came up in the back of your mind that pushed them away. And that is where that's what stops most people. It's like, I can tell a kind of funny story for this. When I was a kid, I was actually born on a farm. Like, I was actually born in the bedroom on a farm. It was a 400-year-old farmhouse in England, and it was a dairy farm.
Cool.
And the guy who was the dairy farmer was this big, scary, rough old, Northern English, Yorkshire kind of scary guy called Mr. Halliwell. And I would have probably been, I don't know how old I was, probably I might have been 4 or maybe 5. And he came over one, do you want a cow? And
sorry, there's freeze. There's freezing there for a second, so I lost part of the
okay,
chat.
so he said,
can you go back like 10 seconds?
So he said, do you want a cow? And of course I said, oh yeah, that'd be great. Anyway, a couple of days later, a couple of weeks later, wherever it was, this guy rocks up with a cow. It was probably only a calf, but it was bloody bigger than I was. And my immediate reaction could have been, oh, a cow, this is great, but no, my immediate reaction was to let out a yelp and jump into my mum's arms with fear. When I was confronted with something that I had been offered, I flat out rejected it. Now, I'm not saying you did that. You didn't jump in anyone's arms with a yelp. But the point of it is that sometimes the reality of what we want, it's either not what we really want. In your case, that's not the case. It can be not what we really want. Because what we really want is something quite different. Or it can be that we're not ready for it yet. Through any resistances. In those masterclasses I mentioned earlier, I did an exercise with people where I said, think about what it is that you want, one thing that you want to manifest in your life, and just tune into it, think about it, and then imagine there is a person standing in front of you that already has manifested that thing that you want. How do you feel? And one person thought, well, it was easy for them. They've always had money. They could easily afford a house. Or, he was a bit of a dickhead, or all these resistances came out. And it's a very clever trick to do with yourself. It helps if you've got someone to talk you through it. But most people should be able to do it themselves. And, what are these resistances that we've kind of built up? If it's money that you want, and if you don't want money, you probably should, because it's very helpful. If it's money that you want, how do you feel about people that have money? There's all this stuff going on in America right now around, billionaires are terrible people, et cetera, et cetera. What does that say about the people that are saying that? I don't want this to be a political statement, but you're getting where I'm coming from.
So what do
those people think about people that have money? They think they're greedy bastards. So is that the reason why they don't have money? Because they think people who have money are greedy? I don't want to be greedy, so I can't have money. And that's the kind of
Yeah.
dumb
But what do you think of,
psychology that goes.
do you think this happens where someone is exploring their relationship with money and they've asked themselves that question, what do I think of rich people? And then they say, no, I love rich people. Rich people are awesome. Rich people are generous. They're fun to hang around. They're kind. They've healed their emotional wounds, and that's what's allowed them to thrive and prosper. But maybe deep down inside, emotionally, they're still feeling things that like people around them said when they were a kid, which is rich people are
Yeah.
greedy. Rich people got what they got by taking it from other people. Do you think that, like, to what extent do you think
Yeah.
that is happening? Because
Oh, definitely.
yeah, I think there
Yeah.
must, I think
Yeah.
there's, I suspect there's a little bit of that going on with myself, because in my mind, I
Mm.
think I don't have any. I've met a lot of, like, honestly, if you go to the really impoverished places, you'll run into some serious assholes. But they're people that are in a
Mm.
lot of pain, you know. And
Mm.
sometimes people that are well off, they're actually really relaxed and kind, and
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. Giving money away, helping people.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, though, you know that in your rational, conscious mind,
Hmm.
but in your, shall we say, unconscious part of your mind, there are still programs running, like, money doesn't grow on trees,
Hmm.
that sort of
Hmm.
stuff that we were told in our childhood is still there and running. But the way to overcome this is not necessarily to concentrate on the underlying belief patterns that are keeping something away from you. But the trick is to decide what it is you really want. I mean, money is just a means to an end. And true abundance, in my book, is the ability to do what I want to do when I want to do it, with the time. Sorry, is the time and the money to do what I want to do when I want to do it, with who I want to do it with.
Hmm.
That's true abundance. It really is.
Hmm.
So what is it that you want money for? It's not the money that you want.
Hmm.
It's the freedom. It's the being, all those things you said about people with money. They're relaxed.
Hmm.
They've got an abundance that they can help other people out. You can go down to one of those impoverished areas. I'm sure there's a few where you live, and somehow clandestinely leave some blessings for people, so that your ego doesn't get stoked up that you're the good guy.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it that money means? And not just for you, but for anyone that's listening to this that has an issue with money. What do you really want?
Hmm.
Is it a car you're trying to get? Well, get the car. Go for the car. Don't go for the money.
Hmm.
You go for the car. I guarantee you, if you want that car bad enough, the money will come. It does. What about when your registration papers are due? Everyone pays their, well, generally speaking, everyone pays their registration. When you're at that end of the financial spectrum, where you're living from payday to payday, and your rego bill comes in. I don't know what the rego bill is in the States, but in Australia, it's about $1,000 a year to drive a car on the road. That $1,000 comes
Hmm.
because there's no resistance. You got to pay that bill. Otherwise, you're going to be driving your car illegally, and they're going to charge you $1,000 on top of the $1,000 as a fine. So the money comes. It's interesting because it's not about the money. It's about, I want the freedom to drive on the road without some copper pulling me over and finding me.
Hmm.
So it's beyond the money, isn't it?
Hmm.
What is it
Hmm.
that you want the money for? And if you concentrate on that and imagine that you already have that, which is another part of it, but we won't go into that right now. If you imagine what you want the money for, you kind of you go around all the money obstacles because you're not talking about money anymore. You're talking about freedom. You're talking about, about, go to the shop and pay for what you want, not have to check if there's money in that account before you go out the door. It's you're circumnavigating all those childhood programs.
That totally makes sense, because money is such a charged topic, and people have all these strong feelings about it, and people act weird with money too. Like I could be walking down the street with an item that is worth $100 and not really feel any sort of concern. Like, let's say it's a piece of camera equipment or whatever. But if I'm walking around flashing a $100 bill, it suddenly becomes, or it's like, if I'm at, let's say I see somebody forgot something valuable on a table and they're leaving a restaurant. Of course, I'll go grab it and hey, you forgot this. If I see somebody leaving money, there's a little voice in my head that goes, "Oh, maybe they should keep it," and then I don't, right? I was, "Hey, you forgot your money." But anyway, let's move
It's
on
an
from the
interesting
money
thing.
subject.
It's the energetic attachment that money creates. Sorry, we can move on, but I think the thing with money,
or if you're inspired to share, absolutely.
look, money is it's an intermediate point, isn't it? It's a transition point. What I really want when I go to the shop is, packet of rice bubbles and some bananas. I don't know where that came from, but that's what I really want.
Yeah.
Now, if I rocked up down there with a bunch of pawpaws, whatever you guys call them, and some stuff.
I don't even know what you just said. What did you just say?
Pawpaws are a tropical fruit. Let's say
nice.
I've got bananas, you've got Cocoa Pops, and we swap. That's cool. You need some bananas? I got some. I want some Cocoa Pops, whatever it might be. Maybe it's yams. That sounds a bit more earthy. But when it's money, it's different. It's a step beyond commodity, and money is more tied in with self-esteem, more tied in with both abundance mentality and poverty mentality. So, and money actually is a blockage. It slows things down. If I just took my bananas, or as a healer or healing practitioner, if I was to do a session for someone and they gave me something I needed in return for it, it would be an exchange of energy. It would be a swap of energy. But when money comes into it, you're sort of amassing this sum that makes you feel comfortable. So rather than the energy flowing to and fro, I need some rice bubbles, you need some bananas, whatever, we tend to pool it. And when you pool something, it you maybe feel like you got to protect it, therefore you don't spend it. Or maybe you feel like you got to get rid of it because you don't feel you deserve it. Or maybe it just sits there and stagnates, especially when there's zero interest rates that there used to be. There's not much point in having money in the bank. They're going to get any income from it. So money's it's an intermediary thing that we've created. It's very convenient. Yeah. That's all I've got to say about it.
Cool. Yeah. So, a moment ago, you said, I forget what it was, but you said something that reminded me of. I made a post on Facebook a while ago that you commented on, and I mentioned that I'd been listening to Neville Goddard and practicing my Spanish and writing in, because my Spanish teacher told me you need to write. And so I started writing, and I started writing my life like in the very near future with the things that I want to manifest.
Yeah.
And it felt so good. I stopped doing that. I got to start doing that. But I'd love to learn more about this process, your ideas about this manifestation process, because I'd love to be doing some more manifesting. I feel like I'm not exactly living in a reality where everything I want is just here and it's awesome. And I'm very much working towards things and aspiring to things. And yeah.
Okay. That's a really great question and a great place to go, because it can be of great benefit to the people who listen to this podcast, that we are always creating. Moment by moment, we are always creating the next now moment. It's how it is. If we weren't creating, and I don't want to go into the esoteric side of this too much because that might take a little bit too long, but basically, people say you create your own reality, and then people say, "Oh no, I don't. It was the other bugger that did it." No, you create your own reality. You do, and we cannot be any better, any more perfect creators than we already are. The only reason that time exists and the next now moment exists is because it's just been created, and it's now, and it's now, and it's now. And to some degree, it's the choices that we make each moment of time. I mean, I could just get up and walk away right now. That'd be an interesting now moment for you, wouldn't it? That's a rather gross example, but it's a choice that I could make. The thing is, people generally used to say we have subconscious. Well, it's my belief for quite a long time, and looking at people like Neville Goddard, Rupert Spira, Eckhart Tolle, and other spiritual teachers, that our subconscious is simply a gatekeeper. The whole job of the subconscious is to observe the world through our five senses, and to ensure that the world that it sees matches the reality that we believe should be there. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah.
Could you say that?
So
could you say that one more time quickly?
The subconscious soul purpose is to ensure that the world that it perceives through our five senses matches the reality that we believe it should be. Okay. The best example is you're sitting in your car at the traffic lights and the car next to you rolls backwards. What happens? You slam your foot on the brake because you think your car's moving. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah. It's very strange.
It is automatic. It is what I would call cognitive dissonance. And you go, oh, hey, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
But that's it. The reality that was perceived through your senses, because there was no term of reference, was it, and the risk management system sitting back there said, "Oh, you're moving. Something's happening. You're moving forward." Boom, foot on the brake. Didn't even have to think about it. The same thing would happen if a lion jumped out from the side of the road, probably. In that case, you might go for the accelerator. But the thing is, it's a perfect example. The car example is a perfect example because it comes with heightened emotion, cognitive dissonance, and oh my God, feeling at the end. That's your subconscious. It's monitoring, and it's doing that. It's keeping you out of danger on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, your subconscious. Sorry, not a spiritual level, on an emotional level, your subconscious is also keeping you out of emotional danger. So, where the subconscious references reality from is from your learned behavior, from your unconscious programming, from those things that we spoke about around money, things that mum and dad told you. You see, your conscious mind quite rationally knows that there are both good and bad people who are poor and good and bad people who are mega rich. It's not about the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the people. You know that, but your unconscious mind also knows, for instance, the example we use that, money doesn't grow on trees or whatever it might be. Or, or there's an overriding concern there that that rich people are greedy and I don't want to be greedy or whatever it might be. And that's coming from some referenced sort of library. But that reference library is of past experiences. Okay. So daily, and the same thing with the with the car. It's reference from your past experience in driving. So every decision that we are making through our subconscious, which is the gatekeeper, is reference from what happened in the past. Okay, so we are constantly creating from a past reference. And so everything that's happened to you keeps happening. Like I said, when I first started, I was getting this repeating cycle of busted relationships all the time, over and over and over and over. I was repeating the same pattern over and over. Reference from the fear of the first time that happened to me. And each time it happened again, it got worse and worse and worse and worse. I was an emotional mess, So Neville Goddard, I had to give that little bit of background knowledge there. Neville Goddard said, create an imaginary act that would I'm trying to think of the right words. Create an imaginary act that would imply your wish fulfilled. Okay.
Create an imaginary
a little bit like we said, act that would imply that your wish is fulfilled.
What's an imaginary act, though? What does that mean?
Oh, well, there you go. Well, it's a little bit like the money thing that we discussed before. You're going to you would create a scene within your mind. Think of how it'll be when you've got enough money and time to do what you want to do, when you want to do it with who you want to do it with. What would you be doing? What would that mean? How would you feel? Etc. etc. So you create a very vivid image of how it would be. I've got a good example. It took me about 2 years to do my first podcast, and I didn't know why. I wanted to do it, but I was blocked. And so this is when I first started hearing about Neville, and I created an imaginary act. The imaginary act was that when I got up in the morning, got my morning coffee, and sat out on the deck out the back, I'd pick up my phone and have a look at how many great comments I got from the podcast, how many more people had joined my podcast, and emails that people were sending me telling me how great it was and giving me ideas for more podcasts. And this was really exciting. This is what I was really wanting. It wasn't at that point in time. It was not, and it still isn't about funneling people into my bloody marketing thing so that I can make more money. That wasn't it. It wasn't what it was. I just wanted to get out there.
Yeah.
But why didn't I get out there? Because I was afraid what people would think.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't, like we said earlier, I think it was even before we started this live today, we said it's really weird listening to your own voice at first. I was afraid of listening to my own voice. I sound weird to me. And so anyway, by creating an imaginary act, that was something that I really wanted, okay, which was people tuning in, comments, positive comments, obviously, emails, people saying, this is great, I love it, keep it up. The emotion that came with that created and that was the imaginary act that got around the resistances that I had to creating the podcast. Now, the second thing that Neville Goddard says is to remember when that happened.
When what happened? Oh, the imaginary act. Yeah.
The imaginary act. Yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to imagine a future where what you really desire is actually happening, how you feel, what you're doing, and then tell yourself it's already happened. I remember when I got those comments. I remember when I saw my my downloads go up. I remember when I got that email telling me how great it was and that, can I please do a podcast on this? And I remember, and you see what you're doing is you're kind of lying to yourself. You're tricking your brain. You're tricking your brain to think it's already happened. So back to the subconscious. What does the subconscious do? It says, holy hell, that doesn't match the reality I've got now. Next thing you know, you're downloading Podbean, you're getting the tech sorted out, you're buying a microphone, and you're creating reality, or whatever it might be that you use, and it happens like that. It just happens because you have created a reality within your mind that your subconscious has to accept. It's in reverse. It's the same reason why people that win the lottery get rid of all the money and just are probably worse off 12 months later than they were before they won the 2, 5, 10, 15 million bucks, because their reality is, this isn't me. And I don't want to go back to money.
No,
but this is not my reality. I've got to get rid of this stuff. So I have lots of parties and stuff, and I'll buy things and lose them, and the next thing you know, oh my God, how did I end up with that huge credit card bill?
Oh yeah,
because your reality didn't match the gift that you just got.
So I had an experience where I tried to help a young person from Venezuela who was from the street, and just a horrific backstory. And it doesn't take a lot of resources by a Canadian standard to completely transform their reality. And I thought, I'll just do that. And they took off, and they went right back to the reality that they know. It's their emotional home. It's all they know. And it was just too weird and alien to them, I think. And so they just went right back to that struggle, that fight or flight survival life of theirs.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's sort of, it relates right back to what we first started talking about with healing, is that there was a time when people could receive a healing and it would stick. And now Spirit is saying, hey, you gotta up your vibe. You have to step into that reality. Was it raising consciousness? I think was the word you used, wasn't it? Yeah. And this is the same thing. You're really raising your unconscious view of the world. You're raising that view up to a point that it can accept the reality. I sometimes, sitting here, sometimes tell people about the rubber band
that
theory.
rings a bell, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, this is where you are right now. Do. And this is where you want to go. Okay. Now, one theory is that if you hold that where you want to be with enough tension, you'll actually be propelled up to it. Okay. But the other theory is that what usually happens is this. You can't hold the vision. So while your vision might be here, by using, say, the imaginary act, you're actually moving your energy up, your vibe up, to match what it is that you want. And then you're just at a new level. And when you're at a new level, there's comfort. You're back in a comfort zone, aren't you? You're happy with what you got. So yeah, I love the elastic band.
It really makes sense.
Because they say creative tension will pull you towards what you want, and that is true. But creative tension is tension, and usually we don't hold the vision and we snap back because the tension is too much. We don't want to put that.
It's rare. It's rare for people to truly change and dramatically improve the quality of their life. In my observation, most people tend to stay at around the same level of joy and freedom and prosperity ongoing. I don't see a lot of fluctuations where, last time I saw you, you were super you were living that beautiful house and you were super fit and you were wearing those fancy clothes, and now you look like you're going through hard times. I don't notice that very often. And then likewise, it's very rare to see. Well, one time I did see a guy in Montreal who was a serious drug addict on the street. And then I saw him walking down the street. I could tell it was definitely the same human being, but he had put on weight. He was walking with well, he was sober, I guess. And I was like, wow, that is a transformed human. But it's pretty rare. Typically, people
Yeah.
tend to stick to whatever. It's almost like that we're reacting to the hand that we were dealt. Or maybe slowly, people
Yeah, and
slowly,
then
because maybe people wouldn't recognize me from 10 years ago or something like that. Maybe it's so slow that,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that's a great phrase that you just used. That people settle for the hand that they're dealt, and that is exactly what happens. From the moment we're conceived, we start to receive
Mm-hmm.
information. We we forget that we're an infinite
Mm-hmm.
spirit having a human experience, and we just think we're a human.
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
stop. And and we start to receive messages from the world around us, like in the womb. Even the fact that not a lot of babies are, well, I don't know what the stats are, but there is a belief that not a lot of babies are actually planned
Mm-hmm.
these days. Uh, and we don't have the old value of, oh my God, I'm pregnant, that's wonderful, and this is a good thing because we need four children to and stuff. These days, if people get married, they get married to buy a house, get a boat, big car, whatever. Kids are
Mm-hmm.
secondary. So
Mm-hmm.
usually the first signal that a child in the womb gets is, oh God, I'm not really wanted.
Yeah. I've heard
And if
people doing regressions of deep tapping into deep memories and feeling, knowing that they are surprised their parents have mixed feelings about it, or maybe
yeah,
they're maybe like negative feelings about it, and they can remember that.
well, if you have a trip to the abortion clinic and mum's talking about killing you, how's that going to feel on a subconscious level?
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it? Because that
I
happens, and
mean,
I'm not making any
uh,
judgments here, but that is in because the child is receiving all the hormones from the mother. The
mhm,
child is connected to the mother. What the mother,
mhm,
in my belief, what the mother is experiencing, the child is experiencing, and if that is
mhm.
really the intent, then obviously it didn't happen because the child was born. But if that was the intent, imagine how that sets you up. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just creating the reality of how things are, what I have to do when I get born, how do I get fed? Maybe you go straight on the boob and you're happy as Larry, or Larry. Um, maybe you get taken off and stuck in a humidity crib and fed through tubes for a month because you were premature. How does that make you feel? How does that work out for your connection, not just with the divine feminine, but with the sacred masculine? Where's my family? This is not what I signed up for,
Oh,
and all these
yeah.
things just sit there, and we just build this reality. Do I have to scream to get fed? If you have to scream to get fed, then maybe that's you continue to scream and shout and get violent about things when you don't get your own way later in life. I mean, this is pure
Yeah.
psychology, I guess. But it is
Yeah.
all of that you need to, well, no need to, it's a beneficial if you can, if as those things come up, come to terms with them. And it's
Mhm,
not necessarily these days about rejecting those things out of your consciousness. That's a way of fixing them, is to blow them off your time track, put something else in there, create a different time track. The other way is to actually accept that's what happened, and love that part of you. Yeah,
mhm.
and that's coming
Yes.
through more and more often these days, is to accept the parts of you that were fractured, and to love those
Interesting.
parts of you. And when you do that, Rupert Spira spoke about this once. He said, "You are God. You are this divine point of spiritual consciousness. There is no separation between you and spirit, between you and all things throughout all time. So if you embrace that part of you, that young child that sat on the bed at 6 years old crying its eyes out because it was sent to its room or smacked or didn't have any friends or whatever it might have been, and you embrace that child and bring that child into your heart, boom, that you are now oneness with that part of you. It's like soul retrieval. That's a shamanic term. It really is. So it's not always having to get things out of our field like they're our enemies. It's about integrating those parts of ourselves, and when they're integrated, they just become part of the love bubble that is your really true essential nature.
It's incredible how much room for change or reintegration or whatever words we want to use is like, as I have become more immersed in the world of personal transformation or whatever, and more aware in my self relationship, as well as, I guess, spending more time in the third world, where there's some really people in some serious pain. It's just amazing how much room for growth there is, I guess, because there are some people, they are so, the gap between where they are and where they still that same person, but calm, they love themselves, they're content, like, people are so messed up, and so it's really important work that you're doing, and
I love it.
and
I love seeing people create the life they love instead of the hand that they've been dealt.
yeah.
That's it.
So I usually go for about an hour, so we crossed over. So
I think
like that was awesome. Anything else that I mean, obviously I want to ask you where people can learn more about you and stuff like that, but anything else you want to add, or anything you want to promote, or anything coming up or anything like that?
I think this has been a very wonderful conversation. It's been very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, likewise.
I currently my online advertising is all over the joint. Something I've got to get sorted out. My website is martinworth.com. And if people wanted to get in touch with me, they could jump on martinworth.com, and there's a link there where people can book the free chat. Obviously, if they're in different time zones, that link will display in their time zone. But pop me in. If people would like to know more about this or go deeper, I'm very happy for them to pop me an email, which is martin@martinworth.com. I'm very happy to point people in the right direction. I do have a YouTube channel. It's usually full of a bunch of meditations and stuff.
Cool.
But as far as accessing the courses that we've been talking about, the masterclass courses I'm manifesting, those are on a Podia site at the moment. I'm still working how to integrate that into where people can get to it easily. So there's a bit of stuff. But if anyone's interested in knowing more, they could reach out through you, and you could put them in touch with me as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, Martin. Well, thank you so much. It's been really, really cool getting to know you more and learning about your work and just talking about that stuff. It's really, really interesting stuff to think about. So thanks for a great conversation.
I'll look forward to our next chat.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream.